Tired of your car insurance rate going up, even with a clean driving record? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry compares rates side by side from over 50 top insurers and helps you switch with ease. Jerry even tracks market rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Switch with confidence. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/Libsyn today. That's JERRY.ai/LIBSYN.
Welcome to the Swift Half, your weekly session of chat from the UK OCR and adventure running scene. Each week, pub landlord Alan and our favourite regular Ian discuss races, runners and anything else that comes to mind. So pull up a pew, pour yourself a drink and join us for the Swift Half.
So hello listener and welcome once again. Oh wait, no, not that sure, it's Friday. Hi listeners, welcome to the Swift Half. I'm regular Ian. Unfortunately, Alan is, well, he's on a wedding holiday. He's somewhere in Europe, I believe. I'm not quite sure where because, quite frankly, I didn't ask him. What a terrible friend I am. But he's somewhere. I know it involved a plane. I know that it was raining when he got there. I'm fairly sure the prices are cheap because he's from Yorkshire. But then again, it is his wedding. So it's kind of like the irresistible force meets the immovable object. You know, what is going to win? Alan being a Yorkshireman or a wedding costing money? Who knows? We'll have to find out when he gets back. But in the meantime, we do have a guest landlady here, Meg Tranter. Welcome back.
Hey. Thanks for having me.
And also, because he heard that Alan wasn't here this week, we got Graham. Graham Wells, welcome to the show.
I had no idea you already had a landlady in, and I just invited myself. Hiya.
Why not? Right, before we get into the news, and listeners, I've got to say, this is probably going to be the most OCR-heavy Swift Half we've had for a while, to be fair, because last weekend was busy. But before we do, let's chat about what we're drinking. Graham, what are you on tonight?
I'm on my usual. I've got my healthy bean juice. It's a coffee I've made at home.
Coffee you made at home? How do you drink your coffee?
Yeah, I think this is a flat white would be the closest approximation. I've got my own espresso machine and grinder and buy my own beans.
You're going to have to help me out, by the way, because there was at Deadly Dozen this past weekend. Hey, we're into fitness racing corner already, but at Deadly Dozen this past weekend, other half, so a spectator, bought his partner a coffee, brought it to her after a race, and she opened it up, and it was like, "Oh, I don't take milk with my coffee." And he was like, "Well, you do with lattes." And she said, "Yeah, but this isn't a latte. This is just a regular Americano." Graham, I don't drink coffee. What on earth's the difference between a latte and an Americano?
An Americano is an espresso topped up with hot water, and you might just add a dash of milk, whereas a latte is an espresso made up with steamed milk.
So there is a difference.
There is quite a difference, actually.
So my suggestion that she just believes it's a latte probably wouldn't have worked.
No.
Oh, well. Anyway, let's move on from that. Meg, what are you drinking?
Do you know what? I haven't even grabbed myself a drink yet. I just came in, plugged in, and here we are.
Oh, wow. Well, you've got plenty of time to grab one at some point. Listener, for those of you wondering, I am on health cake number 246, which, given the number of episodes we have, is interesting. I'm on some sugar-free water. We've got some Highland Spring tonight. Not in honor of Graham. It was literally the last thing on the Tesco meal deal shelf I haven't actually grabbed, which doesn't have caffeine in. So strawberry Highland Spring water. It tastes of strawberries. So it's what it is. I'm not sure what about strawberries is particularly Scottish. Graham, any clue?
Couldn't say, but I find that it just sounds like Glasgow tap water with diluting juice in it.
Yeah, it probably... when you say diluting juice, do you mean cordial?
No, it's diluting juice, because you dilute the juice. Yes, squash, cordial, whatever you Southerners call it. We just always call it diluting juice no matter what.
Meg, what do you call it?
Yeah, we call it squash.
Oh, gosh. This is as bad as asking people what you call a barm cake. Which, yeah, listeners, I know I'm audio only this week because we can't figure out the YouTube about Alan, but I just got the weirdest look. For those of you who do not believe that Warburtons are the purveyors of all breaded items because it's exactly what they call it, and you're not from Bolton, a barm cake is sometimes called a bread roll by people who don't know what it is.
Oh,
So we
that's
would use that for butties.
Yeah. So you use it for butties, and burgers. And it doesn't have flour on top. That's a flour cake. But yeah, a barm cake is what you have your burgers in, you have your butties in. And Warburtons make all bread in the UK or all decent bread. That's what they call it. That's what we're calling it. Yeah, Meg, you don't seem convinced.
no. I think we might call that a cob.
You see, cob to me is when you get really hot, like I've got a cob on.
Also a type of horse.
Really?
Hmm?
Did not know that. Anyway, we've got really sidetracked. Let's talk about Spartan Henley, which is something that 2 out of the 3 people on this show actually went to. Graham, I'm going to come to you first. How was Spartan Henley for you?
So I've made myself some notes, and my first note is don't be all negative. When I was an ambassador, we were not allowed to be overly critical of Spartan or our knuckles would be wrapped. So everything that we always said was really nice and positive. Don't get me wrong, I like Henley, glad to be back. I now feel I've done Henley quite a few times, and the feeling I have, and the feeling a lot of people have, is the beast was lacking. It seemed to be lacking some obstacles, no twister, no plate drag, no ladders, things like that. And it was, well, it's a beast, so it's a lot of running. 32 obstacles didn't really feel like that. It was also the cleanest and driest Spartan I have ever done. My trainers were cleaner after the race than before I started
Well,
because there was no dunk wall, which might be because last year they had dunk wall from Tough Mudder, and after a week in the sun, it was rank, and we all complained it smelled, and they took it away on the Sunday. And I imagine this year they just thought we won't bother. So
that makes a lot of sense. Meg, I'm going to come to you. Did you do the beast like Graham, or did you do different race?
Yeah, I just did the beast as well.
And can you talk to Graham's experience at all?
Yeah, I can. So this was, I went to the US and did a Spartan 2 weeks before that, but UK Spartan, this would have been my first one since August 2024. I had a nice time. I enjoyed it. I like Henley, but I agree that I think some of the major obstacles were probably missing. Like I remember last time I ran at Henley, it was the Beast that was the series race as well in 2024, and that finished with like tilting ladders. Did feel weird to kind of like not have a fun rig at the end, but I mean there were monkey bars, so that's fine. And I guess I don't think people want hard courses necessarily. I think to make, because Spartan is like entry level OCR, entry level competitive OCR, right? Compared to some of the mental stuff they do in Europe. I think that, yeah, to make it appeal to people, to make it more accessible, maybe they're having to dumb it down a little bit. But yeah, on the other hand, a beast is pretty hardcore, and they could put some harder obstacles out in the sticks, maybe. Like, yeah, we only had Ape Hanger, didn't have Twister, didn't have Beater, didn't have Athena's Traverse, didn't have tilting ladders. Stairway was just Stairway, wasn't Stairway 2.0 like we was expecting. And yeah, I was expecting a dunk wall as well, because that's always at Henley. I mean, I'm pretty happy that it wasn't there, but I was expecting it to be there.
I think for a beast, it was a very easy beast. And
Yeah.
whilst you're saying, oh, Graham, if it's so easy, how was your podium? I was 22nd out of 40 in my age group. I just can't run that fast. But yeah, the lack of Stairway 2.0, the rig was incredibly short and easy. But I think that's probably because it was it Hang Tough, they call it at Tough Mudder, and we just got the same thing a week later. And if you're paying £230 potentially for all that, as there was a lot of discussion last week about prices, it's not the best value.
Let's talk to Tough Mudder being there the week before. Meg, did you notice, other than Ape Hanger or whichever it was that Graham just mentioned, was there any other overlap? Like, did you get to play on Mudderhorn, for example? Did we call that giant A-frame? No?
No, it was just the normal A-frame, wasn't it?
Yep.
What about Block Nest? Did you get to play on a Block Nest variation? No?
No, there was nothing. I couldn't even tell you where Block Nest was this time. I know where it was last year because I did the Tough Mudder at Henley last year. I did the Infinity, but I didn't see much Tough Mudder evidence, to be fair. I can imagine Apanga was probably where Funky Monkey was, but yeah, didn't see a lot.
We had balance beams and 6 foot walls and
Yeah,
inverted walls, which are just, they're now one of the ones that are very much shared between brands. But yeah, we, like I said, it was very, very clean. And I think that was maybe a conscious decision after the feedback last year.
I probably would agree with you, and I think like yeah, maybe be careful what you wish for, right? Because you can't whinge at them for actually listening to feedback. And I think Spartan UK, I love a whinge when things don't go right, but I think they do actually listen to feedback.
Definitely. And we all complained in Midlands 2022 that it was too muddy and too much mud. And now there's not enough mud. You
To
can't
be
please everyone. Whilst I was saying, I feel I've done Henley a lot, and it's nice, if not the most exciting course. I don't know if you know who Hartley is, but he was Mr. Trifecta. He was the first guy to get 100 trifectas in the world. He loved it. He thought the course was great, and he has done hundreds of races because it's not what he's used to. So other people really enjoyed it. I say I like Henley. It's not the most inspiring course, but it's quite a nice runnable and running course. I don't think it's as hilly as people make out, but that's because I live near hills.
That's a good point. Although, to speak a little bit to it being clean, that's probably a feature, not a bug when it comes to Henley. They can't even have mud mile there because, according to Will Chung, it would be like going up and down sandpaper. It's not the best ground for that kind of obstacle at all, which means you can't have rolling mud for Spartan for saying same reason. You mentioned the hills there. Are you aware at all, Graham, whether the Beast course tracked parts of the Tough Mudder course? Because the Tough Mudder Legionnaires were whining it was hilly. So did they just send you round the base of it?
I will put money on it. We did the 15K course plus 7 extra kilometers. And I could tell you probably without looking where we left the Tough Mudder course because that's exactly what they do at Midlands. You can see it, you can follow, you can put the maps over each other, and you can see where, oh, suddenly we veer off into Spartan territory. The hills are undulating, but nothing too steep. And it might be because, went to Morzine last year. That's hilly.
Think that there was one that was quite significant, but I think my Garmin got it to about 650 meters elevation gain across the beast.
Which, for those of us in old money, that is 1,800 feet, which is quite a lot to be fair. But again, for you international travelled Spartans who go and play in the hills, and Meg, you talk to your adventures in the hills, it was probably nothing, correct?
I've done bigger mountains, yeah.
Well, I just checked my training run I did the week before, and I did 800 meters in 10 miles.
Yeah, but to be fair, you're being chased by people from Glasgow.
Yes. Oh, God, don't talk about Glasgow right now. I'm glad I was down in Henley this weekend. That's all I'll say.
Oh gosh, is it a bit green up there at the moment, Graham?
Yes, lots of green things lying around the city and the streets. As much as I'll say about the beats, the super and the sprints where they were better. I guess much more obstacle dense. Obviously, I mean, especially the sprint because you just sort of run up through a forest for a little bit and just run back through all the obstacles. I ran that with some friends. We had a laugh. The super, I ran the age group on the Sunday morning, and we still got 8 hanger, which is quite unusual for a super. So that's quite a big obstacle on a super compared. Usually that's just only on a beast. And the super even came with a bonus 30% extra distance to help with the
Nice
extra
of you.
30% on ticket price.
Yeah, that's a. You know what? I was going to make that same joke, but thankfully, Graham saw it coming. Right, mate. I know that you also had a great time at Spartan Henley. We've covered some of the not so great stuff. What did you really enjoy about Henley?
Me first.
You first.
Okay. I like running Henley. I think it's a very runnable course. It's very fun. And I mean, for me personally, I just treated it as a training session. I didn't go too hard. I only ran in zone 3. I just had a nice time. So I think that made my run a lot more enjoyable than it usually is. And I think the route was different. than what it was in 2024. I'm pretty certain. I haven't looked at my Strava and compared yet, but I definitely remember running the same way in Tough Mudder Infinity last year as I did in 2024, and we didn't do that section this year in the same way. So I think they have switched up a little bit, and yeah, I just had a nice time. It was really fun. It was good to be back in the scene. I ran Elite in the UK for the first time. It was just a vibe. I thought it was a nice day out.
How did you get on in the elite?
Yeah, good. I mean, there's never enough women, and I think this is something I say all the time. There are a lot of women in age group that shouldn't be running age group anymore, but I guess it depends what you're there for. If you're there to, say, I'm so great, I came first in my age group, when you probably would have got maybe third or fourth elite time. Like, maybe you're just there to have fun and do better than you did last year compared to wanting to be an athlete. I think maybe, but I just wish there were more people that wanted to be an athlete in the women's field, for sure. Like, there was only 6 of us that ran.
Yeah, Meg with the hot take there, but it's that age-old issue, isn't it? I don't know if we'll ever solve it. I was always a big fan of the idea being that everyone was competitive and effectively you handed out age group prizes after the top three elite. But I also am aware that some people who want to make the step up from open to age group, that then acts as a barrier to them, because if you happen to be in a competitive age group with a lot of elites in it, so say 30 to 34 or 34 to 39, all it takes is for 3 of those elites to be there. And suddenly, if they're not on the elite podium, you've no chance of getting a podium. So I can definitely see it both ways. Graham, let's go over the old ground because we're down this topic. Do you think there's any solution to not forcing people to step up to elite, but encouraging them? What do you reckon?
It's a hard one for the women's field. I don't know how you do. I would say, why not have, I don't know, between elite and age group if there's a price difference.
I don't,
There
don't
obviously is between open and age group. I would say remove that, but if there isn't one, I've just scanned the results, and certainly several of the women who won their age group, they would have at least came fourth. I think
and
even the women in the 50 to 54 age group would have came fifth.
yeah, that's what I feel. And I know you can't, like, obviously take their results as gospel, because although you're running the same course, you're not in the same race, right? So, and I pointed this out to a really good age grouper that I think should step out, and I should probably explain what I mean, is like, the women go after the men. So she would probably be even faster if she ran in the elite wave, because one, she would have some competition, because she obviously has none in her age group if you're winning by like such a significant amount. And two, like, all the age group men, they're not in the way anymore. So she would probably run even faster and be even more impressive if she ran in the elite wave. So she may have even podiumed. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was crazy. But also, the women's results was mental. Becky came in second place, just 11 seconds after first. That was wild. I wish I could have seen it.
Meg, you should have run that little bit faster. You said you were taking your time. Had you run that little bit faster, you might have finished 15 seconds behind Becky and watched it all.
Who knows if I'd have actually tried? That would have been fun.
Exactly. You heard it here first, Becky. Meg's coming for you. She just needs to stop relaxing on the course. See, we're causing beef here, which probably doesn't exist, but no, it's definitely a difficult one. I don't have the answer. I've always been a big fan of everyone's competitive, but I also understand why people don't like that. So it's hard. Let's try and solve other problems while we're on a problem-solving course. How do you solve a problem like, because we have this in Tough Mudder as well, that the longer course has less obstacle density than the smaller courses? Graham, I'm going to come to you first, because of course you have that in the Beast. You mentioned, in theory, you should have got an obstacle every 700 meters or so, and it didn't kind of work out like that.
No, and obviously if you think a sprint is, say, 20 obstacles, 5K, for 4 times the distance, you only get 10 extra obstacles. I think you just have to put more, or maybe more natural obstacles, find a log to have people climb over, maybe more, I hate them, but more barbed wires, small ones, some extra carries. Obviously, more obstacles means you need more volunteers. And that's another takeaway from the weekend. They were lacking in volunteers. That was certainly felt on course. There weren't many at times, and I think a lot of the ones they had were agency staff, which itself has its own challenges. Or maybe they sometimes have to realise that not every course should have a beast. It used to be we only got 2 beasts in the UK. And it was only a few years ago they went, now every course is a beast. And some courses aren't, they're not meant for beasts, because after a while you're just padding out and running around the field for extra distance just for the sake of it.
That's a good point. Graham, would you have attended this weekend if it was just super and sprint?
Maybe. I certainly back in the day travelled down to Aston Down for a super and sprint. Even attended my first Midlands at Marston was a super only when I was first starting. But yeah, nowadays I do go down for the full weekend. But one thing about weekends being nothing but trifectas, I now don't have the time to volunteer.
That's a good point. No, that's an excellent point, because if you're down there anyway, why would you volunteer? You just race.
It was 400 miles for me to get to Henley each way. It's a lot of cost in travel, cost in food, accommodation. If I'm going down there, I'm going to go and race, make the most of it. And now that you have a Saturday sprint in the afternoons, it means I can do beast sprint Sunday morning. I can do the age group super, and I can get home same day, as opposed to doing a sprint on a Sunday afternoon and get home at 1 o'clock in the morning the next day. So things like this, the way they scheduled and changed it, it doesn't lend itself well to getting as many volunteers as they used to.
Yeah, that's fair. Meg, would you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, also the volunteer shifts were weird because I was looking at volunteering for half day after the bees, but I think it was like 3 p.m. till 9 p.m. that was available. I was like, what? I'm not staying till 9 p.m. That's crazy. Like, why couldn't there have been like a 12 till 6 or something like that? And that would have covered the majority of the races of the day. And like that would still surely count as a half day. I don't know, maybe I could have just gone and asked at the volunteer tent and they probably would have said yes, but like it just put me off.
Yeah, I've heard that the volunteer shifts are longer than they were. I've not looked at them personally, but obviously, Gaz is the volley lead now. We love Gaz. Gaz is amazing. If you went on to Gaz and said, I have 2 hours, do you need help? He will absolutely take it. You won't get a race code at the end of it, but sometimes it's good just to go and give back. And if you're not doing anything, go and help out. I've done that before.
I miss that, because in the Tough Mudder days, I remember a lot of times, particularly when you had camping, you'd race in the morning on Saturday. You'd then do a afternoon shift, and a lot of times you'd find yourself just out there handing out leaflets or whatever, because there was always something to do, and there were usually way too many volunteers. But yeah, it's absolutely a shame. And yeah, that makes perfect sense, Graham, that having the sprint now after Beast, why wouldn't you make it into a trifecta weekend if you're down there? Speaking of trifectas, let's talk to the hexes, Graham. Let's
Bloody.
one, it looks incredible, but you told me something that I wasn't aware of when we were talking to Will last week, because I had this lovely idea. I know I'm not the only one. This idea that all these new hexes, I was going to put them on my fridge. And I want to say, I think Kelly Spalding had a similar idea, but there's a little bit of a problem with that, isn't there, Graham?
The hexes aren't magnetic. The medals have the magnetic part on them. So when they first announced this, I was quite outspoken about the hexes because Spartan did a terrible job of communicating it. When they showed it, it was like, oh, this could be great because you'll get all these hexes and, you could connect them in a big mosaic and you could have a big pattern and you could stick it on your fridge or a baking tray or something to display them all. And it turns out the hexes don't stick together. The only way to display them is in a medal. So the way it works for Spartan, you obviously get your medal with your individual hex. Amazingly, the hex piece for the sprint is just a forehead, and you put them. If you do your 1x trifecta, you now get a 1x trifecta medal, which is where your 3 individual hex pieces go, and you get a ×1 hex piece on the back. Looks really cool, obviously. Your medal then looks rubbish because it's got a big gap on it and 2 wee magnetic prongs to hold your hex. When you move up to the ×2, you get a bigger display that can hold, I think, 12 hex pieces, and you're meant to fill that out. And then ×6, you get an even bigger display, but it doesn't hold any more hex pieces. It still holds the same number. And then they get bigger to, I think, 15, and then it's the same size going forwards. But I just thought, especially as this weekend, I've walked away with 7 hex pieces. And if I go do Tough Mudder or Deca and Spartan, and you get your venue hex, and you get your weekender hex, and your ×2, 3, 4, 5, in my Sparta World Championships hex, you're going to end up with potentially 20, 30 of these from a season, and you can't stick them all together.
Yeah, Meg, any thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't really care about the bling anyway. It's not for me. I'd rather like it's obviously nice to go out and earn stuff, but yeah, I'm not one of these people that races for the medals. I like the t-shirts more. Like I can use them, I can wear them, but yeah, I don't know. I guess they've just tried something new and it just hasn't really worked. I remember even the community kicks off about the t-shirts, right? I just think like, I don't know how to say it nicely. We just like we love a win. And I think that's just the OCR community. I like collectively there's hardly anything we're ever happy with.
Yeah, I can understand that. And for OCR, substituting rugby league, substituting football, substitute anything in the UK, it's just my team last week, listeners, and if you're listening to this on the Friday when it comes out, please cross your fingers for Oldham Rugby League because we're playing the same team again tonight. We managed to go 24-0 up and then somehow managed to lose 40 points to 34, which is incredibly impressive. But of course, that was our first loss in like 8 games, and suddenly the whole sky had fallen in. Every single fan was no longer a fan. I'm not sure if anyone burnt the shirts or anything like that, but yeah, it is just the way people are.
Yeah.
However, I I can definitely see what Graham's saying about the hex because I thought it was going to be magnetic. And the funny thing is, Graham, you're going to have to correct me if I'm wrong here. The old style trifecta model, actually, they were magnetic in and of themselves.
Yes, the
So
wedge piece is connected.
the wedge pieces. So we're actually in a worse situation now when it comes to having a standalone trifecta than you were last year.
Yeah.
Mm.
So you've got to keep them in the display. And I like, I like my medals. I sit here. I always have last year's medals are to my right on my desk, and then this year's ones will go on my windowsill in my kitchen. And then after they've done their sort of time on display, they go in a massive basket that now weighs about 30, 40 kilograms. And I don't know what to do with the, I think, 80 odd medals I've now got.
Yeah, I used to make coasters out of the trifecta wedges, and I can't do that with a hex. They are just a bit redundant to me.
I have a few coasters as well, but again, how many coasters do you need? I'm on 20-ish trifectas now. Like, I can only have so many people around for coffee.
That's a fair point. But to the point earlier, like I said, I think it was Kelly who mentioned it, and it was my idea too. They'd look okay on your fridge. Okay, if you have a built-in fridge whereby, you've got a wood display, it's not for you. But if you have a regular fridge, they'd look kind of cool on there and it's conversation starter. So maybe it comes down to cost because I did notice looking at Graham's medal, and if you've not seen him, go back and have a look at Will's last week on YouTube. It's two little magnets attached to it. The medal itself isn't magnetic. There's literally two magnets, and I know how cheap those are because we use them for when putting together models. They are ridiculously cheap. So maybe it was a cost of just getting them little things. I really hope that the medals come pre-assembled and we don't have poor Gaz there and pre-event gluing in little magnets to all these medals. Maybe that'll be a pre-event shift for Tough Mudder one day. We're all there with a glue gun and loads of magnets, which I will say, listener, it's not fun because the magnets always stick to each other, which is never great. Right, before we move on, Graham, any last thoughts on Henley?
No, like I said, it's good to be back. I think, like Megan said, I enjoy going down as much as I was mourning a bit. I still had a good time. I'm mostly going to go down to see what I call my Spartan family, the friends we've met along the way, to hang out, to sit in the event village. The sprint I ran with some friends and we just took it easy. And I'm looking forward to doing more of that. I've got maybe only one more in the UK this year, but I'll probably be back at Henley next year, even if I have some doubts just now. They'll pull me back in somehow.
I'm sure that's famous Al Pacino quote there, listener. You can feel it in yourself. Meg, what about yourself? Any last thoughts before we move on?
No, not really. I just hope that there's more people competing in Scotland, because that's our next one in the national series. But yeah, maybe we'll get some more fun obstacles. I'd like tilting ladders to come back.
Tilting ladders, I can't do it, but it always looks good to watch people attempt it's very Ninja Warrior-esque. In fact, it is in that. I know OCR had it first, but it always looks super cool. So yeah, fingers crossed that they have that. Let's move on slightly to Tough Mudder. So still within the same ecosphere. Something that I became aware of this week, which I wasn't aware of, is this year there is a little bit of a ambassador hub slash help desk in the Tough Mudder village where some ambassadors will go and they'll work a shift there, and their job is kind of like a bit of a PR for a lot of the newbies. And Will talked last week about how Tough Mudder seems to be doing a really good job at getting in new people this year at Henley. He didn't see a lot of shirts representing people from various OCR groups. So something like this is cool. They do it organized, so there's shifts of ambassadors, and you go over there, you chat to them, they will point you out where the bathrooms is, they'll tell you about their favorite obstacles, that kind of thing. Graham, before we came into a pub, because as you know, me and you walked to the pub tonight together because Meg's the landlady and all that. You were mentioning that Spartan's been doing something like this. So can you talk to that, and can you also, just what do you think of this?
Yeah, so we started this a few years ago, maybe 2 or 3 seasons ago at Spartan, and that was the idea. It was just a wee central pop-up tent with maybe a couple of obstacles, small ones, and people could come by and ask questions. I'm doing my first Spartan. What would you recommend? What obstacles should I watch out for? Ask how many burpees do I have to do? Things like that. And there was say a couple of Atlas balls set up so you could get a feel for an Atlas ball, or sometimes they had the chain, so you could put a chain over just to get an idea of what that was like. And we even had some of the medals on display. The year they had the spinny weekend or trifecta, people love seeing that. And you're going, yeah, if you do this, do all these in one weekend, you can earn this medal. And if you do more trifectas, you get these really big medals. And it was a really good way, just sort of engaging with some of the people in the community. We even one year at Badman said, can we set the Spartan Hub up on the Saturday when Tough Mudder's here? We'll try and get some sign-ups. We didn't get many or any.
Oh, sometimes there's no crossover. It's just the way it goes. People are scared of burpees. What can I say? Meg, what about yourself? What do you think of this idea of like an ambassador hub?
I think that's nice. It's fun. I just hope that people are made aware of it existing before they get there. I think that's the key with those sorts of like installations, right? They're great, but you might just get there and go out and do your race and then come back, and they're kind of more redundant, maybe that way. Unless, they had a really nice time, they want to do another one, they maybe want some tips on, but how can you do monkey bars, or how can you do just the tip? Because I know like that's one of the more technical ones on Tough Mudder, right? Or Funky Monkey, like how can you complete it? What should I work on? That's useful. But I guess they would, yeah, maybe for recurring people, they're better. But I like the idea of it, and I think it's nice to be able to go and speak to actual people, right? To get real experiences, real advice. Yeah, I just hope that it is circulated well, that enough that people know it's there,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Maybe some social media around it, because a lot of people would be checking Tough Mudder out on Instagram on the day, maybe a quick story, that kind of thing, just to encourage people. My slight concern, because we try and have a balanced approach to this, would be it's only as good as the people who are running it. And sometimes, there's people who may not be natural at that. I hope ambassadors aren't forced to do this, because some people are far better being an ambassador online, for example, answering stuff. So I hope there's not a case of people being forced to do it. I also hope it doesn't become just a hangout spot for ambassadors. Graham, did you experience any of that with the Spartan?
Did feel there was a little bit of that last year. The first year we did it, it was like two ambassadors would do it for 2 hours. And then last year it's like, there's like 10 of them having lunch. That's not really inviting someone to come and ask about an obstacle. And I fed that back. Again, I wonder why I'm not an ambassador anymore.
Be-
But I think this year the plan was, again, it will be the guys, they'll book a 2 or a 3 hour shift and they'll be on it then. It was never mandatory. It was always an optional thing. And it's something the ambassadors, they want to be used. They want to be out there in the community. They don't just necessarily want to be handing out a discount code, although we'll happily do that because you get rewards. But people are ambassadors because they're passionate about the brand. They're posting about it on social media, they're interacting with their communities. They want to tell people why they do Spartan. Okay, if you're at a Spartan race or a Tough Mudder, you're probably doing it anyway, but it's maybe just a bit of extra encouragement or advice and engagement with the community. So
Yeah,
hopefully they do it well.
fair points. And I was thinking it's probably good to perhaps engage with other people as well. I'm not sure where it is within the village, but it might be kind of cool if it's like close to the finish line. So as spectators are around, you can be helping out those spectators, particularly because one thing I always got asked as a volunteer is, was my athlete on the course? Yeah, they're not got live tracking, but if you're a ambassador, you could probably talk to, oh, well, they went out at 10 o'clock. I know it took me however long. They're in a big group. It might take them a bit longer. So they probably will be here at X time, but we can't guarantee. So, yeah, I think it's really positive and I can't wait to see how it goes. Let's talk about Born Survivor. See, listener, I said it was going to be OCR heavy today. I know neither of you were at Born Survivor, but I did get a review from Mr. Will Chung because he was there. And he basically said that, well, firstly, Karen McQuarrie came first in Born Survivor because why wouldn't she? Because she's awesome at this kind of thing. I've not got the full results. If I remember, I'll bring the full results next week. I'll forget, listener, so someone remind me next week. But Will said it was possibly the muddiest OCR on the calendar, which surprised me. And he has sent video. I'll try and share it in the show notes if I remember. But Will has done a Born Survivor obstacle race in 90 seconds. And yeah, it does look muddy. It looks like, when you go into Woods, Graham, and it's been raining and you've got that little clearing that's all churned up, incredibly churned up. It looks like that for a good 500 meters. I'm sure you'd love that.
So that's where all our mud went last weekend.
That's exactly it. All went to Macclesfield, always on Born Survivor. Will said he was on the last wave and it was very busy even then, which is good news for the sport over here. Very well supported locally. So yeah, go and check out Will's video. What I liked about it is, yes, it's a quote unquote local event, but they still have some massive obstacles there as well. Meg, have you ever done a Born Survivor?
Yeah.
What was it like when you did it?
Yeah, very, very muddy. It's very like classic OCR. There's nothing like technical there. There's just suspension wise, I think when I did it, there was just one set of monkey bars, and on the other side, it was a set of rings. You could choose either or which to do, but the rest of it is all like, yeah, running through loads of mud. Like there's a slide or a water jump or something like that. I think it was a big slide actually into quite a deep pool of water, and the monkey bars and the rings were over water, and then it's all like walls and crawls and balance stuff. Yeah, it's as you would expect a like sort of military theme course to be. Classic old school OCR.
And a lot of people are looking for that kind of. Looks like it's very similar. Of course, it still has some big obstacles. It still has a wall, for example, which
yes,
terrifying, very terrifying. But yeah, if you're looking for the old school OCR, go and check out Born Survivor. I think in relative terms, it's inexpensive, but obviously, compared to a Spartan Sprint now, everything feels inexpensive. But yeah, have a look. I'm sure tickets will go on sale, and these are the kind of OCRs we want to support. Speaking of OCRs we want to support, I want to talk about Bog Commander. But before I do, Meg, was there anything else you wanted to say about Born Survivor?
Yeah, Born Survivor, they do 2 a year, don't they? So I think there's one in September.
I think you're right on that. Yeah, I'd completely forgot. So yeah, check out online, go and see if you can support them. But yeah, speaking of one a year, we've got Bog Commander, which again was this weekend. No one was aware of actually went, so I've just had a look at online to have a look. It looks like a classic OCR. It's kind of fun that in one weekend, going from the bottom of the country all the way up, we kind of had like Spartan, which, as you said, Meg, it's the intro's competitive OCR, but it's probably as competitive as OCR you kind of get in the UK outside of a nuclear, outside of a nut. So we had that. You then had the classic Born Survivor, which is very muddy, some big obstacles, the kind that kind of looked at Tough Mudder and thought, I can do that. And then you have Bog Commander, which I love it because it's a quaint little OCR, but it's also got some little quirks. Like when I did it last time, they had a section. Spartan has carries. They have a lot of old bikes that you could ride round as part of the OCR, which I've never seen a bike ride as part of an OCR yet. But Meg, I presume you've not done Bog Commander yet because you really should.
No, I haven't done it, but I always get it as like a targeted ad online. So their marketing person is smashing it, to be fair. But yeah, I've not done it, but it does look really fun. It looks very muddy as well.
Yeah, it's not going to get in any trouble from the Advertising Standard Agency when it comes to its name. That's all I'll say. It's very much Graham, have you seen that meme where someone's just walking along mud and all of a sudden they just disappear? That's Bog Commander.
A bit like that. I've got to say, using a bike in an OCR one sounds like a recipe for disaster, but also sounds like a lot of fun.
What was hilarious about it is they're all different types of bikes. So it was probably the children's or grandchildren's that they literally just kept around. And I think for some reason I want to say there was a football bit in it as well where you dribbled around corners. I may be misremembering this, but again, they were probably footballs that had been kicked into their garden by a neighbor and they just repurposed. But I love OCRs like this, just little things that you wouldn't find at a Spartan. You're not going to find a bike at a Spartan, are you, Graham? Well, you might do.
Only if it's a sort of activated sponsor where they've got a blender attached to it so you can make a smoothie.
Oh God, don't give
I
Joe
kid you not.
ideas.
No, I'm pretty sure they actually used to have that at Little Mudder.
I'm not surprised. No, but yeah, that doesn't surprise me in the least. I'll be honest. No. Right, let's move on from Bomb Survivor and Bob Commander. I will say that Boss, we've not talked about British obstacle sport a lot recently, but I want to give a shout out to they do have some technical officials coming up, some upcoming dates. So we've just missed one, which was 3rd of May. I hope we announced that before, but we probably didn't. However, one's coming up on Monday, 15th of June. There's then one on Saturday, 1st of August. Tuesday, 8th of September, Sunday, 1st of November. So these are for level 1 OCR technical official course. It costs £12.50 human money or pound sterling, depending how you want to say that. Yeah, so that's for someone who has basically just wants to try and get into being a technical official. You then have the level 2 OCR XC technical official CPD. The next one of them is Monday, the 13th of July at 7:30 p.m. And then you have level 2 OCR track technical official. The next one of them is not until 15th November. All of those are available online at britishobstacle.org.technical official. So go and check those out if you want to get involved in that. Because Graham was saying earlier about lack of volunteers. We do need more officials, and being a technical official can really, really help. Let's move on a little bit from OCR. Let's talk about Garmin, which is updating its affordable range. So it is retiring the Forerunner 55. We're now getting the Forerunner 70 for some reason. Meg, did you get a chance to look at this by any chance?
Yeah, I did have a quick skim of this article because like Garmin has just so many models, it blows my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh, do they really need more? So I thought a good beginner watch was the one that I had prior to this, and the name escapes me, but it looks like something Action Man would wear. I have one. I had one. Shy has one. Fede had one. Oh no, I can't remember the name of it. But that was like a good entry level Garmin, and now that does all the sleep score stuff and that. The first one, the first edition that I had, didn't do that, but the second edition did. Was the Garmin something solar? Oh, I
One of the
can't.
Phoenix ones.
No, I have a Phoenix now. It's like it's. I'm gonna have to Google it whilst we're talking because it's gonna really bother me. It looks really rugged. It's not got like the AMOLED screen or anything like that. Mine was literally just like black and grey.
Well, that's fair. I know what you mean. I know the watch, and I'm sure that listeners are probably screaming at their radios as we speak for those who are on a commute.
I
That
literally
might
had
be
it.
the instinct.
Yeah, the instinct. Yeah, I had one for 2 years, and that was my first like entry level watch, and that was great. But I don't think that was 200 quid. I think it was a bit less.
Yeah, that was why I was a bit concerned. These have been dubbed as entry level, and they're moving on from a Forerunner 55, and it's like 200 and I want to say 19 quid, which to me, that's not entry level because I remember when I was getting into running, I want to say my first watch was like 70 quid. I think it was a Garmin, which was 70 quid. Okay, it was a long time ago. I got into running listener. Yeah, I'm old, not that old, but yeah. And I can't imagine if you're just getting into running, why you'd shell out on £100 pair of trainers and then a £200 Garmin. So I do wonder. Graham, have you got any thoughts about these affordable watches?
They're maybe getting a bit too good. So I think, like a lot of people, I have gone up the range over the years. I first had a Garmin, well, I had Fitbits and they broke. I bought a Garmin Vivo Active Band, and so I need a bit more. So I got the Forerunner 235, which probably cost me about £70. And it did all the good running things that you needed to do: heart rate, zones, laps, distance, various sports activities. But you could see the progression to the 900, which was the triathlete series, and then the Phoenix, which did everything. But what they seem to do is they bring out a new Phoenix model, and then its software goes back down the range. So these new Garmin, the Forerunner 70, appears to have every bit of software that my Phoenix 7 Pro has. And they have even better battery life than the Forerunners. I upgraded my Forerunner because the battery wasn't great. Battery in these things now is insane. They're just getting better and better. I would say if you're in the UK, don't get the 170 because Garmin Pay just doesn't work anywhere. Very few banks support it.
Yeah, I don't think I've even set mine up. Mine's a music, and I've not even set up the music yet. I really should. Moving away from Garmin, a little bit of a article in Runner's World from Sophie Rayworth talking about miles versus kilometers because she has done everything in miles. When she was a runner, miles made sense to her, but her daughter took up running, and kilometers was how her daughter was dealing with it. Graham, are you a miles person or are you a kilometers person?
I'm British. I use the metric system except for when I don't. So it depends. 5K, 10K, half marathon is 13 miles, 26 miles for a marathon, and miles above that. So I think my break even point is about 10 miles. I'll do kilometers till 10 miles, and then it's miles.
Meg, what about yourself?
Yeah, I find it really confusing as well because I also differ between things. And I don't know why. It's like I know a half marathon is, yeah, I do the same. So I know that a half marathon is like 21K, but I just know it as 13.1 miles. But I never train in miles. All my training is done in kilometers. So I don't know. I find it weird as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a British thing, isn't it? That we have this ability to just flip between the two. I will say it was a shock to my system when Tough Mudder started using the metric system and having 5K and 15 as well, because to me, it was always just 10 miles or as close to 10 miles as you could get.
But then at World's Toughest Mudder, it's 5 mile loops.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And yeah, I don't think that there is really a right answer. I think most of us are just hybrids. It's the way we go. speaking of hybrid, let's quickly talk about Fitness Racing Corner. Not a lot to chat about this week. We do have Deadly Dozen has the UK champs, Birmingham this weekend. So if anyone's around, go and visit the UK's third city and come visit us. Meg, by the way, is really upset at that. For those of you who are not aware, Manchester and Birmingham have a little. Well, no, actually, I'll walk that back. As the old joke goes, um, there was a survey done. Meg, have you heard this survey about they went out to various cities and said, which city do you think is the second city in the UK? Have you heard this?
No, but I can imagine what way it's going to go.
Okay. Well, work with me on this. So they went to Birmingham, and all the people from Birmingham said Birmingham. They went to
Fourth.
Leeds, and all the people from Leeds said Leeds. They went to Liverpool. All the people from Liverpool, well, we can't actually understand them. Who knows what they said? Sorry, Scousers. I apologize. No, I think they said Liverpool. They went to Glasgow, and they said Glasgow. And they went to Manchester, and guess what people from Manchester said was the UK second city?
You're going to say it's Birmingham. You're going to say they didn't say
Nope,
Manchester. No,
no,
Manchester.
no, no. People from Manchester, faced with that dilemma, quick as a flash, said the UK second city is, of course, London. Why wouldn't it be? That's a thinker, by the way. Anyway, moving on. Deadly Dozen is this week in Birmingham, UK champs. We'll be there. If you're there, go and say howdy. Also, if you've not yet qualified for the World Champs, head over to Cardiff. It's your last opportunity to qualify this year, so head over to that. Afex has launched their 2027 season, which is incredible for people who want to forward plan. They're going to some cracking venues as well, to be fair. We've got London, of course, we've got Paris, we've got Valencia, we've got Brussels, we've got St. Gallen, we've got Stuttgart, Vienna, Madrid, Frankfurt, Dublin, Lisbon, Berlin, Birmingham, Hamburg, Turin, and Bilbao. And I want to say Liverpool as well, eventually. Yeah. Just after Bilbao, you've got Liverpool, and then you've got finals. Meg, have you done an Affix yet? Have you had the pleasure?
I have not done an ethics yet. I've seen lots of people do them and they do look very fun.
Definitely different. Graham, have you either watched or have you done one yet?
I did last year's Glasgow, so I think that list you read out is the ones that are for sale just now, but there's a fuller calendar because they're not all for sale. So Glasgow's also on next year as well. Yeah, I'm doing it again this year, and I've not done much lifting. And every time I go do 1 or 2 sessions, I can't go for 3 weeks, and then I'm back to square one. And I'm feeling very undertrained because it's in 6 weeks,
You'll smash it out of the park, I'm sure.
hopefully. But then I see David Kelly's lifting videos and it makes me cry.
Yeah.
David Kelly is a beast, though. He really is a beast. You are right. I was reading out the wrong one. We've also got Frankfurt in there. We've got Glasgow, as you mentioned, Marseille as well, and Hamburg. So lots and lots of places to go and do an affix if you haven't done it yet. Speaking of tickets, High Rocks Birmingham tickets are now on sale as of the date this podcast goes out, and they are probably sold out by the time you have finished listening to me. No, I think now we've gone to 6 days, you should be able to get a ticket. One bit of controversy is if you want to race pro in Birmingham, your choice for solo is Friday or Friday, and your choice for doubles is Saturday or Saturday. They have put the pros on a single day for solo and a single day for doubles. Meg, what do you think about that?
Yes, it's trying to make sure that the competition is all there on one day, right? So they get overall podium. I think actually it makes sense, but that's gonna make getting tickets for pro quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with you as to the reasoning, and I agree with the reasoning. I think it's great to have them. I'm not just saying that from selfish purposes of if I happen to be there, it's a lot easier to stream when there's only one day. But the thing I'm slightly less happy about is the fact that the men pro have 16 waves, I believe, and the Women Pro only have 6 waves, which, whilst I appreciate that you're probably putting 50, 60 athletes through these waves because Birmingham is a big, I do feel sorry for some of the perhaps not elite women athletes who do enjoy doing Women's Pro because those tickets are going to sell out incredibly quick. Meg, any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really crazy difference, isn't it? Did you say 16 versus 6?
Yeah, I'll
Not even
someone
half.
could yeah, someone can go and double check for me. But in terms of when the timing is at the moment, and this is just provisional, it could always change. But the pro men go out at 9:40 and their last wave is 12:10. So I've worked that out as being 16 waves. I might be wrong on that. But yeah, I think it's either 16 or 15 waves because you get 6 waves an hour. And that's a good 2 hours and a bit. The Hyrox Pro Women, it's 1250 to 150. So, okay, maybe 7 waves then, actually. Still not a lot.
No, not a lot. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how fast it sells. They might, they might just think that, well, they might know that that's the normal ratio.
Maybe it is. Graham, any thoughts about pros all going up same day?
Yeah, it makes sense. Why have two separate pro podiums across a weekend when you could just stick them all in one day? Yeah, I'm surprised the difference between men and women, though, in terms of waves. I thought it would have been a lot, if not 50-50, 60-40. But Megan's right, I assume High Rocks has the data for how many men and women sign up for the individual waves, and they'll base their ratios on that.
Yeah, I guess the slight issue is it's almost self-selecting as well, that after a race is sold out, you can't then see if you're going to sell it out again. I know you do have the waiting list, but let's be honest, not everyone's aware of that. They should advertise it like we were talking about the ambassadors. Not everyone's aware of that. So yeah, it does seem, and we have that kind of repeated some degree on the Saturday. So High Rocks Pro Doubles Women, you've got 5:10 to 6:10. So again, probably 7 waves when I think about it, because there's 6 an hour and you're getting one after. And then the High Rocks Pro Doubles Men is 6:50 to 8:30. So it's less than the solo men, but it's still more than the Pro Doubles Women. And women tend to sell out the doubles a lot faster than men do, particularly on the open. So hopefully, High Rocks have the data, and it's not a case of they're basing this on the last time it didn't sell out. This is what we got. Hopefully, they are paying attention. But yeah, that did shock me a little bit. Not surprised about pros all being on a single day. It'll work for some people, it won't work for others. It's the way it is. I'm glad they've separated out the pro doubles and the pro solo, because that does allow people to double up if they're mentally enough. Graham, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I always thought, oh, maybe do single then so doubles, and it's like, no, so you're solo and I'm broken.
Meg, what about you? Have you ever back to back to High Rocks?
No, I haven't, I've always just been stupid enough to do solo. I've not been, smart enough to share the load and do doubles yet, but it does just sound way more fun.
Doubles is the way to do a High Rocks if you want to have a race like you at Henley. They are just so much fun. It's enjoyable. Yes, it still hurts, but it's just enjoyable being there, suffering together. Whereas solo is miserable, isn't it, Graham?
Yes, it's an hour and 20 minutes of just, this is horrible. When does it end? I did a double sim at the gym though, and I'll be honest, it's not any easier because you still do all the running and you just push harder on the ski. Oh, I'll do less time on the ski. No, because you push harder on the ski. So it's not fun.
Oh, it's funner. I guess there's levels. Right, before we wrap things up, I understand, Graham, castle to castle rat race. This is something you brought up. Can you talk to that?
Yep, so Rat Race have announced the final leg of their three castle to castle races. So last year they went from Bamburgh Castle to Edinburgh, and this year they're going from Edinburgh Castle to Glamis Castle, which is up past Dundee. And then next year they're going from Glamis Castle to Stirling Castle. So they just sent the test pilots off on that this morning. This year you can actually do the two races, and next year you can actually do all three if you fancy doing three 100-mile races within 6 weeks. I don't fancy doing that. I will be doing the last one because did Bamburgh last year, hopefully completing Glamis this year, and next year it starts on my birthday.
That's a great birthday.
Yes,
And
so
yeah,
I've asked my partner to make me a little cupcake, so at the 50 ml aid station, I can put a wee candle on it and sing happy birthday to myself as I'm suffering and pain and knowing that I still have another like 18 hours to go if I'm lucky. It looks good, and they've also revealed what looks like a belt buckle, and it's one massive. It's either a belt buckle or a medal, and that's if you've completed all three of them. It's got all four castles on it. It looks great. I will be signing up for that on Friday when those tickets are released.
think that is such a cool medal, such a cool kind of race. I'm glad that Rat Race is doing things like this, kind of like branching out, not resting on their laurels. It's not for me. I don't think I'll ever do a 100 miler. Maybe with one of them bikes from Bog Commander that we were talking about earlier, I could absolutely do that. But yeah, no, I'm good with just my small 8Ks at this moment in time. Right, listener, I think it's about time that Meg kicks us out of the pub. But before we do that, Meg, was there any other news and notes you wanted to go for?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, it just feels like race season is like fully starting now, and that's really exciting. I'm buzzing about this year. I think we're gonna have a fun time. I just hope that it's all a little bit warmer than it was at Henley. I was cold.
Yeah, I can't explain what the weather is. We didn't even talk about the weather, but listener, if someone can explain to me whether we're in seventh or eighth winter, I'd really appreciate it because I'm not sure. And just let us know. I swear someone must have stepped on a groundhog or something. That's the reason for that. And if you don't understand that reference, ask your parents to show you an old Bill Murray movie, and then you will. Graham, what about yourself? Any other news and notes we need to cover?
No, I think that's all the notes. I will say, I'm pretty sure Megan ruined my photos of the vertical cargo on the Beast because I did my flippity flip over the cargo and the guy didn't take a picture of me doing that. He got me
I was
before
there
and
at the
after.
same
And
time.
yeah, were you wearing a blue top and massive sunglasses?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hit the cargo net at the same time as you. I'm like, is that Megan? Flip. I said to the guy, did you get that? Yes, he didn't.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Graham. If it's any consolation, he didn't even get me on the cargo. It's just as I'm running up behind it, I was like, well, that's a shit photo.
Yeah, not all the
Oh,
photos, but
God.
once again, were great.
They weren't the best. I didn't even get any on monkey bars, and other people seem to have got those. I ain't getting.
How many did you get doing inverted wall? Again, I've got a good 30 photos going over that.
I don't know why they put them in like really boring places. And yeah, I got some on the barbed wire as well, and it's like more barbed wire crawls, man. I don't need them.
Oh, we didn't even talk to Spotograph and Spartan, but I think that can be a chat for another time. So I'm gonna have to wrap this up my way because I can't remember how Alan does it. So I'm gonna say goodbye, Graham.
Goodbye from me.
Bye, Meg.
Bye.
And listeners, it's a goodbye from me. You stay safe and everything else that Alan tells you to do, and we'll speak to you all soon.
We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.